Have you ever felt that inexplicable sensation that someone you've lost is somehow still present watching over you? That sudden chill when you're alone in a room, yet somehow you're not really alone. What I'm about to reveal was kept hidden for over a century. Powerful knowledge that Helena Blavatsky, the most controversial mystic of her time, risked everything to document. 9 unmistakable signs that prove the dead aren't really gone. They're here, with us, watching, waiting to be noticed. You've felt it before, haven't you? That moment when a familiar scent appears out of nowhere, the way electronics mysteriously malfunction on significant dates, those dreams that feel more real than waking life. These aren't coincidences or your imagination playing tricks. They're attempts at communication, and once you know what to look for, you'll never experience them the same way again. The most brilliant minds of our time, quantum physicists studying consciousness, are finally catching up to what Blavatsky discovered in secret chambers across Tibet, Egypt, and India. The shocking truth that consciousness doesn't end when the heartbeat stops. It transforms, expands, continues. Mainstream science has deliberately ignored this evidence for decades. Religious institutions have distorted it, but the signs are becoming too numerous, too consistent to dismiss any longer. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you understand reality itself. Think about that person you've lost, the one whose absence still creates that hollow ache in your chest. What if I told you they're not gone? What if they've been trying to reach you through signs you've been trained to ignore? In the next few minutes, I'll reveal each sign one by one, and I guarantee you'll recognize at least 3 of them from your own experience. Moments you've dismissed as wishful thinking, experiences that left you wondering if you were losing your mind. The truth is far more extraordinary. The veil between worlds isn't thick and impenetrable. It's paper thin, and those on the other side are desperately trying to reach through it. They haven't forgotten you, and after today you'll never again miss their attempts to let you know they're still with you. If you're sensing the importance of what's coming next, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like, because what follows might be the most important revelation you'll ever encounter. Before I reveal these 9 hidden signs, you need to understand who Helena Blavatsky truly was and why the knowledge she uncovered threatens everything we've been taught about death. In 1875, while most women were restricted to parlors and kitchens, Blavatsky was exploring forbidden temples in the Himalayas, studying with masters who rarely accepted Western students, and never women. What she discovered there wasn't just another spiritual philosophy. It was a sophisticated science of consciousness that modern quantum physics is only now beginning to verify. Blavatsky documented what she called the persistence of consciousness, the evidence-based reality that what we call death is merely a transition, not an ending. The consciousness, everything that makes you uniquely you, doesn't disappear when the body stops functioning. It shifts state, much like water becoming vapor, still present, just less visible to our limited physical senses. But here's the extraordinary part. Blavatsky discovered that immediately after this transition, souls remain close to their loved ones. Not because they're trapped or can't move on, as Hollywood has conditioned us to believe, but because the bonds of love create energetic connections that death cannot sever. Think of it like this. When someone you love deeply is physically distant from you, perhaps living in another country, does your emotional connection to them simply vanish? Of course not. The same principle applies to death, but on a more profound level. The connection persists, and with it, the ability to communicate, if only we knew how to recognize the signs. This is why Blavatsky's discoveries were considered so dangerous by religious and scientific authorities of her time. They challenged the power structures that controlled humanity's understanding of death. If people realized they could maintain connections with departed loved ones without intermediaries, without priests or mediums charging for their services, entire institutions would lose their power. The 9 signs you're about to discover aren't supernatural or mystical. They're natural expressions of consciousness operating beyond physical limitations. They follow consistent patterns that Blavatsky documented across thousands of cases spanning decades of research. These patterns reveal how consciousness communicates across the threshold between worlds. What makes this knowledge particularly powerful is that once you understand these signs, you can strengthen the connection. You can learn to recognize when departed loved ones are reaching out and even establish clearer channels of communication. This isn't about believing in ghosts or the supernatural. This is about understanding the true nature of consciousness itself, an understanding that modern science is finally beginning to approach through quantum mechanics and the study of non-local consciousness. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has conducted groundbreaking experiments demonstrating that consciousness can influence physical reality in ways that defy conventional physics. His findings align remarkably well with what Blavatsky documented over a century ago, suggesting she was not a mystic, but a pioneer who discovered scientific truths long before we had the technology to verify them. From which city in the United States are you watching this video? Or from which country in the world is this content reaching you? Leave a comment below. I'm genuinely curious to know how far Blavatsky's revelations are spreading today. As we move into the 9 specific signs, prepare to recognize experiences you may have dismissed or rationalized away. These aren't coincidences or wishful thinking. They're documented patterns of communication from those who have crossed the threshold, those who are still connected to you in ways you're about to discover. The first sign Blavatsky documented is perhaps the most commonly experienced, yet easily dismissed: unexplained electrical phenomena. Pay close attention, because this sign manifests in ways most people attribute to technical malfunctions rather than communication from beyond. Have you noticed lights flickering when you mention or think about someone who's passed? Electronics turning on or off by themselves? Batteries draining unusually quickly? Phones, computers, or televisions behaving erratically at emotionally significant moments? What makes these incidents significant is their timing and context. They occur during emotional moments, on birthdays or death anniversaries, or when you're actively thinking about someone who's departed. The pattern is far too consistent to be random. Blavatsky discovered this phenomenon decades before our world became saturated with electronic devices. In her time, it manifested through gas lamps suddenly brightening or dimming, clocks stopping at meaningful times, or telegraph machines receiving unexplained signals. Today, with electronics everywhere, these communications have become more frequent and diverse. The consciousness of the departed, Blavatsky explained, can more easily manipulate electrical energy than solid matter. This makes our technology-filled world the perfect medium for contact. One of Blavatsky's most compelling cases involved a woman whose husband had passed suddenly. 3 days after his funeral, the lamp in their bedroom began to flicker in a distinct pattern every night at 9:17, precisely when he used to return home from work. Engineers could find no explanation for this specific timing. When Blavatsky investigated, she discovered the flickering followed a pattern that corresponded to Morse code, spelling out "still here" night after night. The woman had never learned Morse code, making it impossible for this to be a creation of her subconscious mind. Modern researchers have documented thousands of similar cases involving everything from smartphones to car electronics. The phenomenon is so widespread that electrical engineers have begun to take notice, with some theorizing that consciousness might interact with electromagnetic fields in ways we don't yet understand. What makes this sign particularly powerful is its physical, measurable nature. These aren't subjective feelings or impressions. They're observable phenomena that often have witnesses. The second sign builds upon the first: unexplained sensory experiences. Those moments when you suddenly perceive their distinctive scent, hear their voice, or feel their touch when no physical explanation exists. This sign marks the transition from external phenomena to direct sensory perception. And this is where many people experience the stark contrast between what we're told is possible and what we actually experience. Most commonly reported are olfactory impressions, suddenly smelling their distinctive perfume, cologne, tobacco, or favorite flowers when no physical source exists. These scents typically appear suddenly, remain present for a brief time, then dissipate completely, a pattern consistent with consciousness briefly manifesting an energetic signature. Auditory impressions often come as whispered words, the sound of their laugh, or hearing your name called in their voice when you're alone. Tactile impressions include the feeling of a hand on your shoulder, someone sitting on your bed, or the sensation of being hugged when no one is physically present. Blavatsky's research revealed these aren't hallucinations, but genuine perceptions of consciousness that exists beyond physical form. The departed can temporarily concentrate their energy to create these sensory impressions as a direct form of communication. If this information is resonating with you, please comment below with your own experiences and share this video with others who might benefit from understanding these signs. The more people recognize them, the more we can collectively understand what Blavatsky fought to reveal. The third sign Blavatsky documented reveals how departed consciousness can reach us through our dreams, but not in the way most people think. These aren't ordinary dreams where our subconscious mind processes memories of the deceased. These are visitation dreams with distinct characteristics that set them apart. In typical dreams, scenarios shift illogically, emotions fluctuate, and details are fuzzy upon waking. Visitation dreams are dramatically different. They feel hyper-real. Colors are vivid. Communication is clear. The departed appears healthy and whole, radiating peace. Most tellingly, you wake with a profound sense of having truly connected, not grieved or longed for, but actually communicated with your loved one. Blavatsky discovered that during sleep, our conscious mind's barriers lower, creating an ideal state for direct communication with non-physical consciousness. The departed can enter this dream space and interact with us in ways that feel as real as physical encounters, because they are real, just occurring on a different plane of consciousness. Dr. Christopher Kerr, Chief Medical Officer at Hospice Buffalo, has documented over 1,400 dreams of dying patients who report visitations from deceased loved ones. These dreams follow the exact pattern Blavatsky described, hyper-real, emotionally healing, and featuring departed individuals who appear healthy and at peace. This research, conducted over a decade, provides compelling medical evidence for what Blavatsky discovered through different methods. The fourth sign involves meaningful coincidences that defy statistical probability, what Carl Jung later termed synchronicities, finding objects that belong to the departed in unexpected places, hearing their favorite song repeatedly in random locations, encountering their birth date or death date on receipts, license plates, or digital clocks, animals that were significant to them appearing in unusual ways or places. What distinguishes these events from random chance is their timing, frequency, and personal significance. They cluster around emotional moments or important decisions in your life, exactly when guidance or reassurance would be most welcome. Blavatsky explained that consciousness beyond physical form isn't constrained by our linear understanding of time and space. This allows the departed to orchestrate what appear to be coincidences, but are actually carefully arranged communications. One remarkable case involved a skeptical physician whose daughter had passed. After her death, he began finding white feathers in impossible places, inside locked drawers, in his sealed medical bag, between pages of books he was reading. When analyzed, they matched no known bird species in the region. More telling was their timing. They appeared whenever he faced important decisions or moments of doubt. In his daughter's journal, found months later, was a passage written shortly before her death. "If there's a way to reach you after I'm gone, I'll send white feathers to let you know I'm still watching over you." These first four signs, electrical phenomena, sensory impressions, visitation dreams, and meaningful coincidences, form the foundation for understanding how consciousness communicates across dimensions. The remaining 5 signs build upon this understanding, revealing increasingly subtle yet powerful forms of connection that most people experience without recognizing their true significance. We've now reached a crucial turning point in Blavatsky's revelations, the moment where passive reception of signs transforms into active communication. This 5th sign involves what she called the inner knowing, sudden intuitive insights or thoughts that feel as if they're being placed directly into your mind. Have you ever experienced a moment when a thought about someone who's passed suddenly appears in your consciousness, not as a memory or longing, but as a fresh insight? Perhaps their solution to a problem you're facing, or knowing exactly what they would say in a current situation you never shared with them. This isn't your imagination. According to Blavatsky's research, it's direct mind-to-mind communication. Light exists on the visible spectrum, but we now know there are many frequencies of light our eyes cannot detect without special equipment. Similarly, consciousness operates on a spectrum. When someone transitions from physical life, their consciousness shifts to frequencies we typically can't perceive with our physical senses, but our minds can still receive their transmissions. This explains why these communications often feel different from your normal thoughts. They arrive fully formed. They may use phrases or expressions characteristic of the departed person. They might contain information you couldn't possibly know, and they're accompanied by a distinctive feeling of connection, a warmth or presence that signals their source. One of Blavatsky's most compelling cases involved a businessman contemplating a risky investment after his financially astute father had passed. While reviewing the documents, he suddenly heard his father's voice in his mind saying, "Check the fine print on page 17. Though he'd already reviewed the entire contract, he returned to that specific page and discovered a clause that would have cost him everything. A clause his conscious mind had overlooked, but his father's perspective caught immediately. The sixth sign builds on this communication, symbolic messages through objects, animals, or natural phenomena that held special meaning in your relationship with the departed. The cardinal that appears whenever you're making an important decision, if cardinals were significant to your relationship. The butterfly that lands on you on their birthday, finding objects arranged in patterns they would recognize. What distinguishes these from random events is their precise timing, personal significance, and statistical improbability. They occur when you need guidance, comfort, or confirmation that they're still connected to your life. Blavatsky documented the case of a mother who lost her son, an avid collector of heart-shaped stones. After his passing, heart-shaped stones began appearing in impossible places, inside her locked car, on her pillow, in her pockets. Laboratory analysis confirmed these weren't the stones from her son's collection, yet they appeared in patterns that matched exactly how he used to arrange them. If this video is opening your mind to new possibilities, please subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next chapters of this journey. The most powerful revelations are yet to come, including how you can strengthen these connections and communicate more clearly with those who've crossed the threshold between worlds. Now I'll reveal Blavatsky's seventh sign, one she considered among the most significant, yet widely misunderstood: the appearance of the departed in photographs or reflective surfaces when they weren't physically present during capture. In Blavatsky's era, these appearances in photographs were dismissed as double exposures or film defects. Today, they're attributed to digital glitches or pareidolia, our tendency to see familiar patterns in random stimuli. Yet the consistency of these appearances defies such simple explanations. These aren't vague orbs or light anomalies that require imagination to interpret. These are distinct appearances, often partial faces, silhouettes, or full figures, that appear in photographs taken at emotionally significant moments or locations. Wedding photos where a deceased parent appears in the background, graduation pictures showing a departed grandparent who wasn't physically present, family gatherings where an empty chair somehow contains a translucent image of the family member who recently passed. What makes these visual manifestations particularly compelling is their consistent timing and context. They appear in photographs taken during milestone events the departed would have attended if still physically alive. They manifest in places that held special meaning in your relationship, and they often display distinctive characteristics that identify them specifically: a particular smile, a familiar pose, clothing they frequently wore. Blavatsky explained that consciousness beyond physical form can, with concentrated intention, briefly interact with light itself, the foundation of photography. This interaction creates a visual impression that cameras can capture more easily than the human eye, which is why these appearances are often discovered only when reviewing photographs later. One case Blavatsky documented involved a family who lost their daughter in a tragic accident. 6 months later, during a family gathering at their home, numerous photographs captured a distinct image of the daughter sitting in her favorite window seat, a seat that was physically empty when the pictures were taken. Multiple cameras operated by different people captured the same image from various angles, eliminating the possibility of camera malfunction. The eighth sign involves technology-based communication, unexplained text messages, phone calls, computer activities, or other electronic communications that appear to come from the departed. These range from mysterious phone calls where no one speaks but you sense a presence on the line, to text messages sent from their disconnected number, to emails or social media activity from their dormant accounts. While skeptics attribute these to technical glitches or hackers, the timing and content of these communications often contain personal information no stranger could know. They frequently occur on significant dates or during moments of emotional need, delivering messages of comfort or guidance when you need them most. A particularly striking case involved a woman who received text messages from her deceased husband's phone 6 months after his device had been disconnected and placed in storage. The messages contained intimate details of conversations they'd had in private, references to events that occurred after his passing, and information no one else could possibly know. Like this video right now, as this helps tremendously to spread this message to those who need to hear it. The final sign Blavatsky documented might be the most profound of all, and I'll reveal it next. Blavatsky's 9th and most profound sign bridges the gap between esoteric knowledge and practical reality, physical transformations and healing that defy medical explanation, occurring after communication with the departed. These manifestations range from the dramatic to the subtle, chronic physical ailments that suddenly resolve after a visitation dream, long-standing emotional wounds that heal after sensing the departed's presence, addictions or destructive patterns that break following perceived communication from beyond, even physical objects that change or transform in ways that science cannot explain. What distinguishes these events from placebo effects or coincidental timing is their consistent connection to specific communication from the departed. They follow a clear pattern. First the contact, then the transformation, often occurring instantly or developing over a dramatically compressed time frame compared to normal healing processes. Blavatsky documented numerous cases, including a woman with terminal cancer, who had a visitation dream from her departed mother. The next morning, doctors were stunned to find her tumors had reduced by 80% overnight, a medical impossibility that occurred on the anniversary of her mother's passing. Another case involved a man suffering from debilitating grief and alcoholism after losing his wife. After repeatedly finding her wedding ring in places he hadn't put it, the 4th sign, he experienced a profound sense of her presence one night. The next morning, his craving for alcohol had completely vanished, never to return. Blood tests revealed dramatic changes in his neurochemistry that physicians could not explain through known medical mechanisms. These physical transformations represent the ultimate evidence that communication with the departed isn't merely subjective or psychological. It creates measurable changes in physical reality. This aligns with quantum physics' discovery that consciousness itself can influence matter at the subatomic level. The implications transform how we understand both life and death. If consciousness can continue beyond physical form and remain connected to loved ones, death loses its finality. The relationship doesn't end. It evolves into something potentially more profound. These 9 signs, electrical phenomena, sensory impressions, visitation dreams, meaningful coincidences, intuitive insights, symbolic messages, photographic appearances, technology-based communication, and physical transformations, form a comprehensive framework for recognizing how departed loved ones continue to interact with us. But recognizing these signs is only the beginning. The question becomes, how do you strengthen these connections? How do you move from passive recognition to active communication? That's where Blavatsky's most controversial teachings begin, and where your understanding of reality itself might fundamentally change. Now you stand at a crossroads. You've learned the 9 signs that Helena Blavatsky documented, evidence that consciousness continues beyond physical death and remains connected to those still living. But knowledge brings responsibility, and you face a profound choice that will determine your relationship with both the living and the departed. Will you dismiss these signs as coincidence, imagination, or wishful thinking, as our materialistic culture conditions us to do? Or will you open yourself to the possibility that consciousness transcends physical form, that relationships continue beyond death in ways we're only beginning to understand? This isn't merely a philosophical question. Your choice creates tangible consequences in how you experience reality. Those who remain closed to these possibilities often miss countless connections. Those who open themselves to recognizing these signs report richer, more meaningful experiences with both the departed and the living. The challenge lies in navigating between healthy skepticism and closed-minded denial. Blavatsky never advocated blind belief. She encouraged careful observation, pattern recognition, and personal verification. She understood that these experiences are deeply personal. What convinces one person may not convince another. What makes this particularly challenging is that our society lacks language and frameworks for discussing these experiences openly. People who recognize these signs often keep them private, fearing ridicule or concern about their mental health. Yet when given safe spaces to share, the consistency of these experiences across cultures, belief systems, and historical periods becomes strikingly apparent. Perhaps the most difficult aspect is that these connections defy our expectations. They rarely occur when we're actively seeking them or when we're desperate for contact. They happen in quiet moments, often when our analytical minds are at rest, during meditation, just before sleep, during mundane activities, or in states of flow. The departed, Blavatsky explained, exist in a different relationship with time and space. Their communication doesn't follow our linear expectations or demand for immediate responses. This requires us to develop patience, openness, and new ways of perceiving that run counter to our instant gratification culture. You now face a decision point. Will you begin paying attention differently? Will you allow for possibilities that extend beyond conventional understanding? Will you trust your direct experiences even when they contradict what you've been taught is possible? What would you choose? The comfort of conventional explanations or the adventure of exploring consciousness beyond its physical boundaries? Share your perspective in the comments below. I genuinely want to read what you think. We now arrive at what Blavatsky called the final confrontation, the moment when intellectual understanding transforms into lived experience. This is where theory meets practice, where knowledge becomes wisdom. The greatest obstacle to maintaining meaningful connection with departed consciousness isn't lack of signs or communication attempts. It's our own resistance, the psychological and cultural barriers we've constructed against acknowledging reality beyond the material world. Blavatsky identified three primary forms this resistance takes: intellectual doubt, emotional fear, and spiritual disconnection. Intellectual doubt manifests as reflexive skepticism, the need to explain away every experience that doesn't fit our materialistic worldview. We attribute electrical phenomena to technical glitches, visitation dreams to subconscious processing, sensory impressions to imagination, and synchronicities to coincidence. This pattern of dismissal creates a self-reinforcing cycle where no amount of evidence is ever sufficient. Emotional fear runs deeper. Many people are unconsciously terrified of confirming that consciousness continues beyond physical death, not because they fear the departed, but because it would fundamentally challenge their understanding of reality itself. If this aspect of consensus reality is incorrect, what else might we be wrong about? This existential vertigo prevents many from honestly examining their experiences. Spiritual disconnection represents the most profound barrier. Our modern society has systematically severed our connection to the subtle aspects of consciousness. We've been trained to trust only what we can see, measure, and replicate in laboratories. Yet consciousness itself, the very foundation of all experience, remains beyond our ability to fully measure or explain through conventional science. Overcoming these barriers requires what Blavatsky called the courageous heart, the willingness to trust your direct experience even when it contradicts conventional wisdom. It demands intellectual humility, acknowledging the limits of our current understanding. And it requires spiritual reconnection, recognizing that consciousness itself is the primary reality from which all else emerges. This isn't about abandoning critical thinking or embracing every supernatural claim. It's about expanding our understanding to include consciousness as fundamental rather than incidental to reality, what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, and what quantum physicists increasingly recognize as central to understanding the universe itself. When you move through this final confrontation, when you allow yourself to recognize and trust the signs of continued connection, relationships with departed loved ones can transform from sources of grief into ongoing sources of guidance, comfort, and love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone struggling with grief, someone questioning their own experiences, someone ready for a deeper understanding of consciousness itself. We've journeyed together through Helena Blavatsky's 9 hidden signs that those who have departed are still with us. We've explored how consciousness continues beyond physical death and how relationships evolve rather than end. Now we arrive at the most liberating truth of all. Grief itself can transform when we recognize the ongoing connection. This isn't about denying the pain of physical separation or the natural human response to loss. It's about expanding our understanding of relationship beyond physical presence. When we recognize the signs of continued connection, when we allow ourselves to experience the reality that consciousness transcends physical form, grief changes from an endless void into a bridge between dimensions. The most profound discovery in Blavatsky's work wasn't just that consciousness continues. It was that our relationships with the departed can grow, evolve, and deepen in ways that weren't possible during physical life. Free from the limitations of bodies, personalities, and histories, these connections can achieve a clarity and depth that transforms our understanding of love itself. This knowledge liberates us from the existential dread that permeates our death-denying culture. It doesn't remove death's sting entirely, but it reveals it as a transition rather than an ending, a change in form rather than a cessation of existence or relationship. The 9 signs we've explored, electrical phenomena, sensory impressions, visitation dreams, meaningful coincidences, intuitive insights, symbolic messages, photographic appearances, technology-based communication, and physical transformations, offer a comprehensive framework for recognizing how our departed loved ones continue to interact with us. By remaining open to these signs, by trusting your direct experiences, you create space for ongoing relationship with those who have crossed the threshold between worlds. You allow love to fulfill its true nature, transcendent, eternal, and unbound by physical limitation. If you've followed me to this point, please subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share in the comments what resonated most deeply with you in this journey. The conversation has just begun. Thank you for joining me in exploring the extraordinary truth that those we love are never truly lost. They're simply loving us from a place we cannot yet see.